Hello, hello. How's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. Today, I would like to do a response video to a video done by Tomlinson called Why the Blank Slate is to Blame for Mass Migration and Hate Speech Laws. I will post the video in the description below if I remember, if you're lucky. If not, you have to look it up for yourself. But I'm going to respond to it. And, right at the beginning of the video, again, like all of my videos, or most of them anyway, when I'm responding to e-celebs, this is nothing personal. I like Connor Tomlinson. I think he's a good guy. I think Sargon's a good guy as well. They obviously care about England. They obviously care about the destruction of the country, etc., etc. Don't take it personally. I just think they're very wrong about this. Connor Tomlinson basically seems to be reading from the same songbook that Sargon is singing from. So that's why I'm lumping them together. Okay, but let's take a step back here, because this video has actually made me think about what's going on. For some time on Twitter, I've been defining myself as a ethno-libertarian, because I'm just so fed up with this anti-English attack on classical liberalism. But I think it would actually be more accurate to define myself as a English ethno-nationalist. That's just the simplest explanation, and everything is kind of like contained within there. And that's basically my whole perspective on this thing. I am an English ethno-nationalist. I want to defend England and the ethnicity of the English people, which means I want to defend English history and our culture and our philosophy and everything, going all the way back to Hengist and Horsa and etc., etc. And with this in mind, when I see Connor Tomlinson and Sargon attacking John Locke and blaming all of the problems of our age on John Locke, like this horrible John Locke person. Who is this person with his blank slate theory of mind? He's the one to blame. He's the one to blame for the grooming gangs. He's the one to blame for transgenderism. It's all his fault. Evil John Locke. When I see this kind of nonsense, I just see it as an attack on our culture. Essentially, I see it as an attack on our philosophy, our political philosophy, and both Sargon. I keep mentioning Sargon because obviously he's saying the same thing, but both Sargon and Connor Tomlinson are declaring that we should tear down not just liberalism, not just modern day American liberalism, but classical liberalism itself. They're both declaring that it should be torn down, and they don't know what they're going to replace it with. Neither of them is offering an alternative. And interestingly enough, the book that both they're quoting, which is a book by a guy called Patrick Deneen. Okay, so I think he's a Catholic. An Irish Catholic that hates the English. Wow, what a surprise! Never seen that before. So he's Irish, he's Catholic, and he's American, and he hates English philosophy. He hates the English way of life. What a big surprise. But this guy, he writes this book. It's called Why Liberalism Failed. This is the book that Connor is talking about, or at least one of the books that he's talking about. Interestingly enough, he goes on to write another book. He goes on to write another book called Regime Change. This came out in 2023, and it was liked by J.D. Vance. And just as I'm Googling all of this in the background, I've Googled post-liberal because that's what this guy is. It's a new movement. It's the post-liberal movement. And I'm Googling it, and oh, look, J.D. Vance pops up. And apparently J.D. Vance himself is declaring himself to be a post-liberal, guys. And of course, he's getting lined up to be the next president of America. And who's J.D. Vance in bed with? Well, the PayPal mafia, Silicon Valley, and Elon, and Peter Thiel, and so raw egg nationalist, and Bronze Age pervert, and Mencius Moldbug, and all these people. And all of these people are advocating for a technocracy. They want UBI, universal basic income. They want digital IDs. They want AI to control everything. They want a technocracy. They want to create a digital prison and they want to put us in it. And I don't trust them at all. And so it seems to me, so I smell a rat. Basically. I think Connor and Sargon have just, they think they're really clever. Oh, look at me, I'm so clever. Oh, I've rejected liberalism. But neither of them are proposing a solution or a replacement for liberalism. They just want to rip out the philosophical foundation on which our culture is built, and they don't have anything to replace it with. This is completely retarded. I'm not trying to be rude, but this is really, really dumb. Oh, let's throw away John Locke. John Locke is considered to be essentially one of the founding fathers of America. I mean, go look him up. He's the father of libertarianism. He's the father of classical liberalism. He is the foundation stone on which America rests. So if you tear him down, what's left? This is some kind of crazy a left-wing exercise, essentially. You are attacking Western civilization, which is why I define myself as an English ethno-nationalist, because it makes it clear I'm interested in my ethnos, I'm interested in my nation, and I'm interested in defending the political philosophy of my people. So it's like I'm an ethno-nationalist first and foremost, and a classical, an ethno or a racist classical libertarian secondly. And I feel the need to defend John Locke, not because not because I dogmatically believe in the ideas of John Locke, but I feel the need to defend him because he is one of the English philosophers. He's part of our political system. And I feel that he's being misrepresented. And I feel that he's being attacked. And I feel like an attack on him is an attack on the English. And I feel that if John Locke was alive today, he would be horrified at the state of the nation. And he'd be horrified at seeing Connor Tomlinson sit there and essentially blame transgenderism and blame all of this on John Locke's shoulders. He'd be like, what are you talking about? This is not what I said at all. This is not what I intended. He would be on our side. He would be an ethno-nationalist. I think anybody from that century would be. So instead of so what I think has happened with liberalism, with classical liberalism, is that it is a philosophy which was never explicitly racial, because it was a philosophy which was created in a time when England was essentially an ethno-state, 99.9% white. And so the subject, I guess, back in those days, it would have seemed insane. Like they'd think, well, what are you talking about? London's going to be filled with brown people. What do you mean we just invite them in and they live here? I guess it wasn't a thought which would have crossed their minds. I guess the idea of having a transgender movement, which is castrating tens of thousands of young men because they think they're women, I guess the thought wouldn't have crossed their mind. They would have just thought that was insane. So they never explicitly defined liberalism as a racial ideology, and so that is a weakness within that philosophy. And so what has happened is people on the left basically have gone inside this philosophy, or people with a left-wing inclination or whatever. They've gone inside this philosophy and they've twisted it and they've molded it and they've turned it into what is now known as liberalism. Which, if you look it up on Wikipedia, it's social liberalism. But the term's coming from America. All of this swearing, oh, liberals this, liberals that. What they are referring to is not classical liberalism, which was a defense of personal rights and individual rights. What they are attacking is essentially social liberalism, which is so instead of classical liberalism is all about defending your private property rights. Social liberalism is all about defending your right to be gay, and your right to not be poor, right? So the right to have a welfare state, and your right to your right for illegal immigrants to come and sit in your country, and etc., etc., etc. It's civic nationalism gone mad. It's the civil rights movement gone mad. The civil rights movement starts off as a way of defending your civil rights, your freedom of speech, freedom of association, etc., etc., and it ends up defending the civil rights of foreigners in your own country, essentially. So what I'm trying to say, my dear friends, is that there are bad people out there, and they hate Western civilization, and they hate white people, and they thought to themselves, what can we do to destroy this civilization? Well, we could create an alternative philosophy to overthrow the philosophy on which this civilization is built, and they did do that, Marxism and etc., many others. They could do that, or they could enter into our school of thought and then twist and pervert it from inside and turn it into something which is just completely insane and disconnected from John Locke and disconnected from everything that the original classical libertarians thought. And that is what they've done. Essentially, it's Gramsci's march through the institutions before Gramsci was even born. That's what's happening here, guys. This is how these people think, whether they do it deliberately or whether it's just instinctive. This is what is happening. Saul Alinsky talked about this. He said, if you want to have a revolution, you should dress it up with the American flag. You should dress it up as a return to the Constitution of America. And of course, he was writing in the 60s. Nowadays, you don't need to do that anymore because the left wing hates America and they'll burn the American flag. But you get the idea. If you want to get people on your side, people in general are kind of afraid of a new idea. They want old ideas. So if you want to get people on your side, then you appeal to the old ideas. You say, well, this is the way we used to live in the past. Let's go back to that. This is why, by the way, they're trying to pretend these days that England has always been multicultural and etc., etc. And they'll probably start rolling out, gay history and they probably already have. We've always had transgenders. We've always had gay pride marches. We've always had. It's always been this way. It's always been this way. That's their argument. That's how they do things. So bad people essentially have entered into liberalism. They've twisted it. They've perverted it, turned it into something horrific. And now Connor Tomlinson, instead of saying, oh, hang on a minute, you've perverted our English philosophy. You've perverted our English philosophy of classical liberalism. He's decided to rip the whole thing up and throw it away. He is throwing away the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. This entire video of his is him developing a straw man of what liberalism is, and then throwing stones at that straw man of what liberalism is, and then declaring that we need to reject classical liberalism. And then at the end of all that, he doesn't offer anything in to fit its shoes, anything in response, anything to follow up from it. And so what are we going to get? Well, we're going to get the PayPal mafia and the digital prison and the technocracy. That's what we're going to get. I mean, what else? I don't know. I mean, Connor Tomlinson's Catholic, so maybe he's got some kind of Catholic idea up his sleeve. I don't know what it is. But, I mean, please do tell me, Connor. I mean, please. Please, my dear friend. Oh, you want me to burn my books on John Locke? Okay, I'll burn it, but what do I replace with it, So that's the general gist of my thought here. In fact, that's the general gist of basically everything I'm trying to say on the internet. In case you guys didn't know, I've been on the internet 10 years. This is my 5th YouTube channel. I don't know, 5th or 6th. I lose count. But I got involved with the alt-right back in 2016. Used to have my videos on the Daily Stormer. And I kind of just swallowed the whole alt-right narrative, essentially, right in the beginning, and started banging on about white genocide and this, that, and the other. Never really thought about the Second World War. But then after basically 4 years on the alt-right, I just got fed up with all the anti-Englishness. And I got fed up with Americans basically saying, the English are the Jews of Europe. And they deserve everything they get, and etc., etc. And Churchill is to blame for everything. And so I started looking into the Second World War, and I realised that this is actually just completely retarded. Churchill did not start the war. Hitler wrote Mein Kampf. In Mein Kampf, he quite clearly declares that the Treaty of Versailles cannot be reversed without violence. He was given the opportunity to keep Austria, but he kept pushing. And essentially, like, my opinion on the Second World War is that basically, it takes two hands to clap, right? Takes two to tangle. There's fault on both sides, and so why side with the Germans? Why, when you should really just side with your people, your team? It's your football team. It's England against the world. So I'm very sensitive to this. This is why I've started defending Churchill, and now it looks like I have to defend John Locke. I do not think that Sargon and Connor understand the Pandora's box that they are opening. They are placing the blame of the modern global hellscape in which we live firmly at the feet of John Locke, an Englishman. I really don't think they've thought this through. They are out there on the internet basically telling people, oh, this global world in which we live which is based on the idea of the blank slate, and this comes from John Locke, and it's all his fault. And by the way, they're correct. By the way, I mean, I'm just going to talk about this in half a second. I'm just giving you, like, this is the preamble. But whatever the case, Connor Tomlinson is correct that the globalists that rule over us do have this weird idea of the blank slate, in which they see human beings as being interchangeable, right? So, the population of the Japanese, it's aging. Well, we'll just replace them with Africans. It doesn't make any difference, right? And some of them take it to the extreme point of thinking that a man could be a woman could be a man. And in fact, you could be neither. You could be a they, or you could be an attack helicopter, or you could ascend. You could become transhumanist. You could become a god. Right? This is what it all boils down to. It's a rebellion against God. I can be anything that I want. I can do anything that I want. I have absolute freedom. The only person that has absolute freedom is the Supreme Being. And that's what they want to do, essentially, at its heart. It's kind of really satanic. But anyway, the point being that, yes, the globalists do think in this way. They are looking at people as interchangeable economic units, and they are opening up all the borders, and they do want to create a single world government, and they don't care about the history or the culture or the traditions or anything. They want to throw that all away, and they want everybody to eat McDonald's and watch Marvel superhero movies. And they want us all to become this giant global beige mishmash that they then rule over. And why do they want this? Because if we don't have our history and our traditions, then we don't know who we are, and then it's easier for us to it's easier for them to push us around. Because when David Lammy comes along and he says, I'm going to take away trial by jury, I can say, no, I'm English, you can't do that. But if England's just full of Pakistanis and Africans and Chinese people and Indians and etc., 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 and then nobody's got any real identity and everybody's just all mixed up, then what are you fighting for at the end of the day? At the end of the day, you're just going to be fighting for your next paycheck, right? So yes, Connor Tomlinson is correct to say that this idea of the blank slate is the foundation stone on which modern day wokeism is founded, for sure. But does he really want to blame all of that on John Locke? And is he correct to blame all of that on John Locke? And does he really want every angry person in the world pointing at the English and blaming us for everything? Because this is already what the left does, by the way. Oh, colonialism. Oh, the British Empire. Oh, it destroyed everything. Oh, the white people are to blame for everything. And you're just joining in with these people. Let's tear down the statue. Tear down the statue of John Locke. So I think it's very foolish. I don't think they've thought it through. And like a lot of things, like you don't understand the hatred until you start defending these people. Like you won't understand the irrational hatred that people have against Winston Churchill until you defend it. In a similar way, you won't understand the irrational hatred that people are now developing towards John Locke until you defend him, you see. So that's kind of what I'm going on about in this video. This video is a preamble. But oh yeah, the other point I wanted to make is because what you have to understand, right? Before we get into this, I'm going to get into the blank slate in a second. But what you have to understand, my dear friends, is that people think in isms. People are tribal, and in the modern age, 20th century and 21st century, people have learned to think in isms. Isms is a lazy way of thinking, and it is a new way of thinking. If you read John Locke, if you read Thomas Hobbes, if you read Mary Wollstonecraft and her Vindication of the Rights of Women, if you read Thomas Malthus' Principles of Population, if you read any of these old books before the 19th century, let's say, none of them address themselves as being right or left wing, and none of them refer to themselves as being feminist or liberalist or capitalist or socialist or etc., etc., etc. They just don't think in those terms. They talk about the subject matter in itself. I personally really am starting to dislike the fact that I have to talk about isms. Oh, liberalism versus socialism versus capitalism versus individualism versus collectivism versus etc., etc., etc. Feminism, etc., etc., etc. On and on and on it goes. Because what am I talking about here? I'm just talking about concepts. I'm talking because any ism is essentially that they're all very, very poorly defined. So when I start talking about an ism, instead of talking about the right to vote, the right to property, let's say we're talking about liberalism or capitalism. So instead of talking about the right to vote, the right for property, the right for freedom of association, the right for freedom of speech, what kind of laws should we have in the country, how should the country be run, what kind of policies, instead of talking about all like the meat and potatoes, right? The good stuff, the interesting stuff. Now I'm talking about some abstract concept called an ism, which is a collection of all of these things bundled together under a flag. And essentially that is all it is. It's flag waving. The whole idea of the ism itself was first thought up by the French. I mean, apparently it's got an old history, but it really came to prominence after the French Revolution. Some French guy wrote a book called Ideologies. This guy was called Antoine de Tracy. I don't know why I'm saying it in Italian. And I can't do a French accent. Anyway, French enlightenment, aristocrat and philosopher, Antoine de Tracy. So there you go. Came up with the idea of ideologies. Obviously picked up later on by Karl Marx. So this is the thing. We're living in this bubble. We're living in an intellectual bubble which has been pushed forward by French revolutionaries and Marxists. Karl Marx himself, obviously, he talked about ideologies, and he just said that this is a way for people to, keep the masses down. They feed them these different ideologies. So now here I am in the 21st century. I've got to bang on about capitalism, and it's like I've got to use these terms because these are the terms that other people use. But these terms themselves, they're lazy. It's lazy thinking for me to sit here and bang on about liberalism. But unfortunately, this is the trap in which I have been placed. Do you see what I'm saying? So the French kind of came up with this idea. And then it was popularized in America in the later half of the 19th century, with people complaining about feminism and this ism and that ism and blah 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 blah, right? And now these concepts are just accepted. Same with the concept of the right wing and the left wing, which I personally think you can trace back to the Kabbalah, and the right and the left wing, or the right and the left pillars on the tree of life in the Kabbalah, one being masculine, the other being feminine, and their constant interaction. I can't prove it, but who can? But this is the strange thing, because we live in a world where everybody's talking about the right, the left, the right, the left, and yet most, like 99% of people, 99.9% of people can't tell you why. Why do we talk about an idea being right on the right wing and an idea being on a left wing? Why? Where does this come from? This is basic. And yet people can't explain it. Lazy thinking. But anyway, the point I'm trying to say, my dear friends, is that ironically enough, because of democracy, because of liberalism, ironically enough, because people vote for things, politicians then feel the need to say that they're part of a group. So a politician will feel the need to say, I'm a feminist, or I'm a capitalist, or I'm a socialist, etc., etc. I'm part of this school of thought. So then you end up having people just voting for schools of thought. So then you end up with just flag waving. This is all this is. It's flag waving. It's retarded. That's all it is. I'm a capitalist and I hate you because you're a socialist. Like, well, what's your opinion? I don't believe... There are a lot of things that capitalists believe in that I don't believe in. I don't believe in free trade. I believe in protectionism. I also think we should nationalise the utilities because it's a natural monopoly. So am I a capitalist or a socialist? Well, I don't believe in the welfare state. Let's scrap that. So, you know, it's people are not talking about the policies. They're not digging past the flag waving. It's football hooligan intellectualism. It's tribal politics. It's isms fighting against each other. But unfortunately, as I say, this is the trap in which we are caught, and I feel the need to defend classical liberalism because it is a flag which has been held up by our English ancestors, by the English tradition. And so if Connor Tomlinson comes along and he tears this flag down, he's opening up this country to attack. Basically, you're going to have a whole mass of people, including English people themselves, who are just, this stupid English, they've ruined everything. John Locke's ruined everything with his blank slate theory of mind. Oh my God! Kill him! Oh, you stupid English. Which is what I've been dealing with in the alt-right, with everybody, with a bunch of neo-Nazi Americans hurling abuse at the English people, calling us the Jews of Europe, and saying that we should pay reparations to Germany for Dresden, right? Do you see my point? Do you see where I'm coming from, guys? I hope that you understand. I'm so sick and tired of having to apologize for stuff. I'm utterly sick to the back teeth of having to apologize for being English. I get involved with an ethno-nationalist, a white nationalist movement, but apparently I've still got to apologize for Dresden, and now I've got to apologize for John Locke, and then I'll have to apologize, I suppose, for Henry VIII as well. I'll have to apologize for that. And on and on and on and on it goes. Well, I'm not apologising for anything. As far as I'm concerned, the English race is the master race. We conquered this world. We dominated this world. We are the dominant ethnicity of this world. 200 million of us, at least. The Anglosphere still exists. America is an English colony, and it controls the world. We should be rallying behind the Anglosphere for world domination, or continued world domination. Instead of doing that, Connor Tomlinson wants to rip out the foundation of America. This is completely retarded. I genuinely believe if you are going to have a political ideology, your political ideology should contain a plan for world domination. I understand not all, obviously John Locke never talked about this, but if you don't have a plan for world domination, you're going to be living in somebody else's plan. That's the way I see it. The Muslims have a plan for world domination. The communists have a plan for world domination. The Wilsonian idealists have a plan for Kant's perpetual peace, world democracy. They've got a plan for world domination. If we don't have one, you live in somebody else's plan. This world is like a chessboard. You should want to win the game. That's the way I think. And I'm kind of saying all this because I'm going to send this video to a friend of mine called Tharium, who I've been doing a show with for the last 6 months or whatever. And but he's very anti-American, and I'm fed up with it. Basically, I'm fed up with it. I'm fed up with this. Oh, I hate America, because America's our colony. And I just think there's a lack of any kind of master plan. You either rule the world or somebody else does. You either rule or you are ruled. And I would like to continue ruling the world. Thank you very much. And in order to continue ruling the world, I would like the Anglosphere to survive. I do think the modern day Anglosphere is too hawkish. I do not think that America needs to be world police. When the British Empire ruled the world, we did not get ourselves involved in every single war that ever happened. For example, the Russians and the Japanese, they had a war. We didn't get involved in it. We let them fight. It wasn't our business. We had a policy of splendid isolation, as far as I understand it. But we were dominant. We were top dog, so to speak. I believe in hierarchy. I believe that power bores a vacuum. I believe that on the global stage, one nation will come to dominate. That's just simply the way that the human mind works. The human mind is designed to discover hierarchies. Ask any woman. She walks into a room of men. The woman, whether she cannot help herself, but she will figure out who's the alpha male and who's in charge. She can't help it. She'll just do it automatically. They're drawn to it. Men do it as well, obviously, to a certain extent. But this is the way that people, when they look at the world, this is the way that people think. Who's number one? So in the old days, it was England that was number one, and now it's America. I would like America to continue being number one. My friend Tharium wants to destroy America. He thinks that England and Canada and Australia and New Zealand, we can do it alone, like in the old days. I think this is retarded. It's stupid. I would like America to continue to... Obviously, England is just too small to continue to rule the world. There's nothing shameful about it. We're just a small island. We don't have the natural resources. We did a good job of it, and now we've passed the thing on to the Yankees. That's just the way it is. There's no point crying about it. Obviously Roosevelt stabbed us in the back with Lend-Lease and all of this. Okay, but it's done now. It's a done deal. So I would like America to continue to rule the world. I would like the Anglosphere to continue to dominate. This is what is on my mind. And so I get really prickly when people like Sargon and Connor come along and they tear down the foundations on which this empire is built. They're not thinking clearly. They're not thinking. They don't have a plan. So anyway, the world is not going to be a better place when China takes over. If China takes over, it's not going to be nice. It's not going to be pretty. Obviously, America's got huge problems. Obviously, America has poisoned the world with its multiculturalism and its multiracialism and its gay agenda and all. I'm fully aware of all of these problems. But nonetheless, like in days of old, I would like to save the Roman Empire one more time. One more time. Let us save the Roman Empire. Anyhow, let's get on to the actual subject matter itself. Essentially, Connor Tomlinson is saying that the blank slate is to blame for what's happening in the world today. And to a certain extent, I think he's correct. However, I think that what he's actually attacking is a perverted understanding of what the blank slate is. And I don't think John Locke was an idiot. Let me put it that way. I do not think that John Locke was an idiot. I think that John Locke absolutely understood the difference between a man and a woman. I do not think that John Locke thought that a man could become a woman. I do not think that John Locke thought that an African could be a white man, and etc., etc., etc. And I have not actually read his book. I mean, let's just lay things out here in case you're like 35 minutes and you still don't know what I'm talking about. John Locke is a philosopher who wrote a book called Two Treatises of Government way back in 1689. So around about basically exactly the same time as the Glorious Revolution, in which William of Orange comes over, becomes our king, and we've been a constitutional monarchy ever since. And in this Two Treatises of Government, he's responding first of all to Thomas Hobbes and second of all to Robert Filmer. And basically he proposes that this idea that there was a state of nature, and in that state of nature things are a bit rubbish because it was everybody against everybody else. And so the solution to this is to come together and to form a government so that we can protect people. And this idea originates from Thomas Hobbes. Well, actually, it's got a long history, but Hobbes was the first one in the English tradition to really famously state it. He was writing in reaction to the English Civil War. He said the state of nature is nasty, brutish, and short, and he said we should have a king. Right, better to have a king than to have us just slaughtering each other all the time. Was his idea. I think he was correct in this. And so John Locke basically followed on from what Hobbes said, but he just said, well, it doesn't have to be a king. It can be some form of democracy, or it can be parliament, basically. It doesn't have to be a totalitarian king, but we do need a parliament. So he used the idea of the state of nature and the social contract, although he never used the word social contract, but he used these ideas to form a justification for parliament or for government. This was groundbreaking stuff. In the old days, before Thomas Hobbes and before John Locke, kings ruled simply because either by divine right or basically just because it was their property. It's like, you're on my land. This is my land, and I'm the king. This is my domain. This is my territory. This is my estate. Essentially, I rule over the estate of England, and you're living on the estate of England, and therefore you kind of belong to me. So this English liberalism, in my mind, English liberalism is a reaction to the Norman conquest. Basically, it's. I mean, this is how it was framed at the time. By the way, it was framed as very much as a return to Saxon liberty. So in Anglo-Saxon England under Aethelstan, we were free and everything was perfect, right? And we had the Witan, we had the Parliament, and everything was nice. And then this bastard comes along, William the Bastard, William the Conqueror, with his Jewish wife and all his Jewish friends, and he comes along, and the Jewish tax collectors push us into poverty, and everything's awful. And we have Robin Hood, and we have Richard the Lionheart, and the Magna Carta, just get our freedoms back, and a long struggle in this direction. Finally, we kicked the Jews out. Obviously, Cromwell brought them back in, but whatever. But eventually, we get Parliament, and then this evil King Charles shuts down Parliament. There's an English Civil War. Nobody likes it. We get over that. We get the king back, but then the king's son is a Catholic, and we're like, no, a Catholic. And so then finally we have the Glorious revolution, and that's like the end of history almost for the English. It's like finally we're liberated, we've got a parliament, and we've got our sovereignty back. So that's the story of the English. This is, again, why I feel I have to defend classical liberalism. It's literally the story of the English. The story of the English has been the story of liberation from struggling, liberation from Norman tyranny, liberation from the serfdom that William the Conqueror put us under. William the Conqueror and his tax collecting Jews, and also, by the way, the serfdom of the Catholic Church. Of course, Connor Tomlinson wouldn't agree with that at all. But we managed to cast off the Pope and go our own way. So that's the story of the English, and John Locke's very much kind of like sitting at the kind of like the end, or not the end because the story never ends, but do you know what I mean? Like at a crucial point in that story, he writes his 2 treatises of government, and in this government he creates a new foundation, a new idea to found the English nation on. The crucial difference is that this land isn't just a piece of land which can be owned by a king. No, the idea is that sovereignty lies with the people. Sovereignty lies with the people. And we give our sovereignty to the king so that the king can rule over us. So we agree to be ruled over by the king so the king can rule over us. And that's the foundation for the nation, essentially. That's the social contract. That is the essence of the social contract. It's a different idea. Because what Locke was saying was that you have natural rights. You yourself have a right to property, to life and limb, to freedom of speech, etc., etc. You are born as a free, sovereign citizen. You have sovereignty. Connor Tomlinson is taking this for granted, by the way. Again, it's why it just annoys me so much. It's like, you want to get rid of your individual sovereignty? Do you, Connor Tomlinson? Oh, that's a good idea. Do you want to be a serf? Go and work in the fields, right? Is that what you want? So, essentially, it was a new concept. Sovereignty is with the people. We give the sovereignty to the king in order to impose peace. Because in a state of nature, without a king and without a government, we're just fighting against each other and we're killing each other, and it's not safe. So we'll give part of our sovereignty to the king. The king can rule over us, and he can impose peace and prosperity. And what I mean by give sovereignty to the king is that essentially you're giving the power of life and death to the king. The king can execute you. And that's kind of the risk you take for peace, basically. That's the deal. Which is why I'm of the opinion that if you take away the death penalty, you will return to the state of nature, which is what is happening to our country now. Obviously, Keir Starmer doesn't believe in the death penalty. He won't execute Axel Ruda-Cabana, and all of the criminal scumbags know this, so they're going out around raping and killing and murdering, and the whole country's just going down the toilet, isn't it? Because there's no justice, there's no punishment. Because essentially the government's giving away its sovereignty. If you give away its sovereignty, if the government gives away its sovereignty by refusing to execute people, then the sovereignty returns to the people, and now you have a state of nature, which is what is happening to our country. It's chaos. Anyway, that's an aside. But this is the basic idea that John Locke presented. And Sargon and Connor Tomlinson are misrepresenting this idea. They are saying that the social contract is built on the idea of a blank slate. This is false. They are saying that the social contract is built on the idea that everybody's equal, right? Everybody's a blank slate and everybody's intrinsically equal in some kind of utopian Garden of Eden sense, and this is the foundation of government. But that's not what the social contract was about. The social contract was about sovereignty. You're equal in that you have equal sovereignty. You have an equal right before the law. It's not that the man is the same as the woman. It's not that Joe Bloggs is the same as Fred Smith. They don't have the same intellectual capacity and the same physical capacity, and etc., etc. That's not the idea. The idea is that Joe Bloggs is a sovereign individual, and Fred Smith is a sovereign individual, and they have equal rights before the law. Joe Bloggs may be richer than Fred Smith. Joe Bloggs may be smarter than Fred Smith. But they're treated before the law in an equal manner. Do you see? This is the point. Sargon and Connor Tomlinson are creating a straw man against liberalism, and they're attacking that straw man. They are misrepresenting the social contract, basically. 45 minutes. I still haven't talked about the blank slate. I guess it will be the conclusion of the video. This is what happens. Either you attack the subject straight away. I'm just starting to notice this myself doing these videos as I do. Either you get to this point straight away, or you do a preamble, and then the preamble will just go on and on and on and on, and you get to the point at the end. That's just the way it is. Whatever. So, you know, again, I define myself as an English ethno-nationalist. I'm not like I'm a huge fan or supporter of the social contract theory. Again, for me, it's English ethno-nationalism first and classical liberalism second. I'm defending it because it's English. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, there's a fluidity of ideas, and people can think this and they can think that. As long as the country keeps going, basically, I'm kind of happy. But essentially, essentially my attitude. Essentially, I feel like I'm Edmund Burke. I am the reincarnation of Edmund Burke. Okay, Edmund Burke wrote Reflections on the Revolution in France, and he was a liberal, and he's a Whig. So he was, in the beginning, he was in support of the revolution, and then he stood back and he was like, whoa, guys, this is a bit violent, this is a bit crazy. He wrote his book, and this book is considered to be the foundation stone of modern day conservatism. So I kind of have the same attitude. I'm just like, yeah, we need to change things. Can we just not tear everything down? Because maybe that's a bad idea, and you're going to have a lot of problems, right? Because the nation is complex, and maybe these institutions are in place for a reason, and I just have this conservative mindset. That's my mindset. Don't rip the country up like the French did. The way I see it, Connor Tomlinson is basically a French revolutionary. He wants to put John Locke in a guillotine and chop his head off. I'm just saying, instead of burning all the books and tearing the statues down, maybe we should fix a classical liberalism, right? Because classical liberalism has been perverted by our enemies. So let's fix it. And by the way, like, there's a historical proof for this. The Americans were racist. We were racist in this country. Madison Grant, racist. What's his name? Herbert Spencer, massive racist. We have the Trail of Tears by President Jackson, kicked all the Indians out, massive racist. We have a white racial immigration policy in Australia, massive racist. So we have Jim Crow. Racial consciousness and liberalism have lived side by side for a long time. In fact, racial consciousness itself really comes from the English. Yes, Arthur de Gobineau, the French guy, he was like the first ethno-nationalist. But we had Madison Grant, we had Lothrop Stoddard, we developed eugenics, we developed scientific racism in this country. It's absurd to say that, oh, you can't be a liberal and a racist at the same time. It's historically insane. What are you talking about? I mean, this is another thing which irks me. It's like these people will say all this, we need to tear down classical liberalism, and then they'll turn around and start talking about the next general election. What are you talking about? The entire political system is built upon the foundation of classical liberalism. Go and read the Wikipedia page on what liberalism is. Right to vote, etc., etc. Parliament is built on this foundation. Oh, I want to tear it down because people on the internet said it's not cool. I want to be edgy and cool, and like we do something new, and yeah, like okay, whatever, mate. So anyway, my points. What is the point I'm trying to make? The point I'm trying to make is, let's fix classical liberalism. Let's fix the social contract. Okay, because these people have, and Connor Tomlinson in a huge chunk of his video, he's banging on about Rousseau. He's banging on about this idea that the state of nature is some kind of utopia, and basically it's the Marxist utopia. So he's basically saying Marxism is all about returning to the state of nature, this blissful anarchy of the noble savage, where we all just live in harmony with the birds and the bees, and we're all holding hands and dancing naked in the Garden of Eden, right? So, a Kabbalistic idea. I've never really looked into it, but I've heard that Jewish Kabbalists, they want to go back to the Garden of Eden. That's what it's all about. Who knows, right? Who knows? Go back to being a beast. But who knows? Right? Go back to being an animal. No rules. I mean, there's so many interpretations. There's so many things you could say. But that's kind of the point. They've gone inside our philosophy and twisted it and perverted it and turned it into a whore. I'm saying let's fix it. Let's take the idea of the social contract and fix it. So historically speak, because this is one of the weaknesses of Locke, his theory is not grounded in historical fact. His theory is grounded in rationalism. He just says, well, these facts are self-evident, and if you think about it, it will be obvious. He's not saying this is an English tradition. I am arguing that the social contract, or at least Parliament, is an English tradition, because we are English. We can trace our ancestors back to Hengist and Horsa, back to Denmark, back to Scandinavia, back to Uppsala, and back to the kings of Sweden and Norway, and they would have things. They would gather together in meetings, and they would have things. And the oldest parliament in the world is the Icelandic parliament of the All Thing. All right? John Locke never talked about this, and that is a great weakness in his argument, and I accept this. But nonetheless, I would fix classical liberalism by grounding it in the tradition of the All Thing. That's the first point. Secondly, historically, I would argue, in reality, most of the time, you never have a social contract in which people, agree to have a king. What really happens is you have conquest and submission. So what happened in our country is Aethelstan basically united the country, fought some battles, united the country, and also defeated the Vikings. And this is how the country was formed. It's submission. The social contract is submission. Social contract is like, okay, we'll stop fighting, you're our king. That is, in reality, that's like the Machiavellian interpretation of the social contract, I suppose, if such a thing can exist. So that's how I would fix it. And the state of nature is just, it's a threat in part, that if the country falls to pieces, we'll go into anarchy, and that's not going to be good. And it's also just the thing that existed before this great man united us into one country. So they're misrepresenting the social contract. They're saying it is dependent on the blank slate theory of mind. This is just false. It is dependent on sovereignty. And there is a difference between sovereignty, individual sovereignty, and the blank slate theory of mind. And now finally, 53 minutes, the conclusion of the video. Well done for staying this long if you did. The blank slate theory of mind. Now, I haven't actually... So what is he talking about here? So John Locke wrote he wrote a lot of books, but first you have the two treatises of government. This is where the social contract, the political ideas are laid out. And secondly, you have another book called An Essay Concerning Human Understanding, which is published in 1689. And it's a book about epistemology. It's a book about where does knowledge come from. So basically... Again, I haven't actually read this book. I've read two treatises of government. I haven't actually read An Essay Concerning Human Understanding. I say I haven't read it. I studied it at university like 20 years ago, but that was a long time ago. I think that this is not actually the hill I want to die on, because I need to read the book. Okay, so I'm going to say what I'm going to say after reading about it on Wikipedia and Googling it and talking to Grok about it and etc. And basically remembering what I understood about it from university a long time ago. But I'm going to have to reread the book. But I think that they are misinterpreting what John Locke said about the blank slate theory of mind. In my understanding, John Locke quite clearly stated that basically he was just saying ideas in the mind means everything in the mind, okay, all thoughts in the mind. So he was saying ideas come from the outside, but he also accepted that ideas come from sensations. So hunger is an idea in the mind, or at least you have the sensation of hunger and then it forms an idea in the mind. So you have the sensation of lust, it forms an idea in the mind. You have the sensation of anger, it forms an idea in the mind. And in this way, John Locke accepted that different people could have different intensities of sensation, basically. So, or different types of sensation, because they had different bodies. So, classical points, and this is my question to Connor Tomlinson if he ever watches the video, or for anybody in the comment section below. A woman would have lust for a man, and a man would have lust for a woman, and the woman's lust would arise out. She would have the sensation of lust within her body, and this would lead to an idea in the mind. The man would have the sensation of lust in his body that would lead to an idea in the mind, you see. So, I mean, I guess arguably you could say John Locke didn't think the mind was male or female, the body was male, and the mind was neutral, and then it was filled with sensation. I mean, you could, like any philosophical idea, you can go inside it and you can break it open and twist it and mangle it and rewrite what they said, and you can create a straw man. John Locke supported transgenderism. You can do that, but honestly speaking, do you really think that John Locke didn't know the difference between a man and a woman? Really? Really? Do you think he was an idiot? And that's basically it. That's the conclusion. Having looked, again, I'm going to have to reread the book, but having looked at it, yes, basically it seems like he defines the mind as being neutral, right? Not male, not female, not black, not white, etc., a neutral thing, and in that neutral thing, ideas come from the outside world and from sensations. But he is fully aware that there are different bodies. There are male bodies, there are female bodies, there are African bodies and white bodies, and etc., and these different bodies have different capabilities, different levels of intelligence, different etc. He's not in denial of this. So there's room there for a crazy left-wing person to go into it and say, well, the mind is a blank slate. So a man could be born into a woman's body, or with education we could turn a black man into a white man, or etc. But not really. I mean, this is an interpretation of what Locke said. But Locke's quite clear that different bodies create different intensities of sensation. So some people are going to have more anger within them, and that's going to affect their minds and the way that they behave. So, really, I guess my point is, like any philosophical system, you can go in there, you can misinterpret it, you can twist it all around. Kind of like Christianity springs to mind. Love thy neighbor. Oh, we have to, let's invite all the Muslims into the country because we have to love thy neighbor. You can twist that to mean what you want to mean. You can twist John Locke's tabula rasa theory of mind to justify Amazon and the PayPal mafia taking over the world and creating this international global state with interchangeable atomized individuals that just work for corporations, and they've got a chip inside them, and they're all on universal basic income, and they're following a social credit score, and they've got a digital ID and an RFID chip. Haven't heard people talk about them for a long time. That was a globalist plan that they wanted to roll out, that they kind of failed with that one, didn't they? But maybe they'll bring it back. But everyone's got a chip. Everyone's got a chip, and there's drones everywhere, and you own nothing. And I mean, you can take John Locke and you can spin it to create that, or you can take John Locke and interpret his ideas in a different way, and see him respectfully as an intelligent man who was trying to do something to help England. I prefer the sympathetic way. I prefer an English ethno-nationalist sympathetic reading of John Locke. I see him as a English man in the tradition of the English people, who had some ideas. And was he perfect? No, he wasn't perfect. Should we blame our modern dystopia on him? No, it's foolish. You're ripping out, as I say, the foundation stone on which America is built. It's a huge mistake. So there you go, guys. Finally talked about the tabula rasa in the last 5 minutes of the video. Aren't you glad you stuck all the way? Aren't you glad you got to the end? Well done. Obviously, Connor Tomlinson is warmly invited on for a conversation. As I say again, I've nothing against the guy. I think I really like him, actually. I think he's very smart, and obviously loves the country, and that whole generation of younger men, I think, are doing a great job. So well done, Connor Tomlinson. I just think he's made a mistake. Sorry if I appear aggressive in the video. That's just the way I speak. What can I do? What can I do? I've got to sit here for an hour. I've got to say an idea. If I don't put any passion into the video, then the video is boring. Do you know what I mean? If I'm just talking in a monotone voice like this, then it's going to be very boring. So you have to get passionate. And if you're going to get passionate, you have to call Connor Tomlinson an idiot. But he's not an idiot. He's a good guy. Okay? So thank you very much for listening. Give us a comment below and tell us what you think. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.